People were still booing you though. How'd that feel?
They're paying good money to see me fight. They're in the front. I'm winning. It's fucking amazing.
Image changed from this really motivational voice in the local fitness community to essentially this pretentious asshole.
I can do it. Like, irrelevant of what anyone says, I don't give a
So you actually began in design.
I was never the guy who would go to school.
You started something which you admit did not work.
Totally failed. Fuck it failed? Okay, let's move. Like,
So what did you want to prove by stating that you would do it in a year?
there was no Maltese champions. Nothing. You're looking stupid.
Would you say that you are similar to Flakey in certain ways?
I think Flakey is interesting and funny because he's like an alter ego. Next 360 is going to become... Our goal is to become...
Welcome to the ZIGZAG pod, Scott. Am I speaking to Scott or am I speaking to Flakey?
Speaking to Scott today.
Okay, we're speaking to Scott today.
Alter ego.
Okay, alter ego. So for our audience listening, and for the ones who don't know, Scott is actually my brother. So I'll be uncovering a lot of the points about his career that many of you don't know. Quite interesting one. So Scott, I want to dive into where your creative career started from. So you actually began in design. Can you walk us through that journey, how you started out? Tell us what you were doing and how you started out your first business, Torri Lahmar.
I've always been a creative person. I hate doing the same thing over and over again. So like for me, a new day is like a new project, a new idea. And I get fed up very quick. I always want to go on to the next thing, that shiny ball. It was a blessing and a curse in my career. But I don't know, man. I think creatively it's nice to do something different and try to use a creative art to do something and try push a narrative. And I fell in love with that, if it's fitness or if it's art or if it's, whatever it is. From a young age, I used to love painting, love drawing, you remember. I would always be drawing or painting, a lot of Maltese things. I used to love Malta as well. And it started to sort of develop from there. Then I started to get a better understanding of branding and business. And, I really fell in love with that avenue. And I just mixed everything together. But I was always a creative person. I was never the guy who would go to school and, be good at school or get good grades. I was always bad at school, but I was always good at creating and coming up with ideas. And when I was young, I didn't know that was a career, I would say drawing on my notebook and get in trouble for it. But then it turned out to be my whole line of career. So who knew?
In fact, what I find really interesting, and it's something that many people don't know, is that you actually left your course. You chose to abandon it within the last 3 months, and you ended up not graduating, which, as in, from point of view of a family member, it actually got a little bit of strong emotions, strong reactions from certain family members. Can you tell us why you decided to leave, whether those reactions affected you, and why you ended up developing this anti-system mindset, anti-university, anti-further education mindset?
It's like you're trying to push a narrative. Well, you guys are all still in school, eh? Well, I'm going to shit on your parade in Mom Summer. I went to school. It's sort of like the have to do the thing. You want to have your kids. You want them to go to school. You want them to get a job, get married, have kids, and sort of die happy. Unfortunately, it's as real as that. But I know I never connected to school. And as things started to progress in society and social media and marketing as a whole, the syllabus was back. Like you're learning about things in marketing that were Coca-Cola campaigns of 1960s. It doesn't make sense. I used to be in school and I'm like, the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I hearing? And I started to learn and do things on my own. I started to realize like it's a completely different game to what I'm hearing at school. Like, who's right, my teacher or a guy online? And it came down to this narrative where if you're listening to people online and you're listening to a teacher who, for example, marketing, you're listening to a guy who has never launched a business or has never done a huge campaign tell you how to do marketing. And then you find a guy who, launched a business which is worth, $1 billion or 10 billion or whatever, or hundreds of millions. And you're going to listen to the guy who makes the money. You're going to listen to the guy who's successful from it. So I found it a bit counterintuitive going to school and saying yes to someone who, unfortunately, doesn't have what I'm looking for. So I started to work on my own business in school. It was good, at least, because I grew creatively through school. I met the right people and I met a guy who I ended up launching my first business with. It failed, but I learned a lot from that. I was 18, 19, and I would end up always working on clients and always trying to do my own things at school. And at the point I was like, it's no point being in class just to get the confirmation that I'm in class for a stipend or just to say I'm going to school when I'm doing more out of school. So I said, fuck it, I left school. We launched a business. I learned a lot from that. And that's when I really started to realize fuck, this is the this is how the game works. This is what I need to learn. This is what I'm doing wrong. This is what I'm doing right, you know. And after that, then I fast-tracked my ability of learning 10x, you know, from being in school. But yeah, that's why I left school.
And I feel like many people are in that situation where they're not sure whether they want to continue or not. What advice would you give to people who aren't sure what next step to take, or rather whether to even continue school?
The most fucked up thing about school, I think, is you have to take a decision that dictates your whole life when you are at an age where you don't even know yourself yet. And I think it's a really tricky scenario to be in. And I was in that position. I see, you know, even people your age and even people who are still my age who still don't know what their life calling is. And I think that's a very difficult position to be in. I think people need to remember that they're not the only ones in that position. And your 20s or your years of doing the thing, like trying a lot of different things and understanding, hustling, you know, you have to hustle, you have to try different things, and you have to understand what works and what doesn't for you. And you have to be ready that a lot of the things you're going to do are going to fail. And most people end up not, you know, progressing in life because they fail and they just stop there. It's a very negative society, you know, because miskeen or miskina, you know, and they don't manage to do anything. And I think that is the age where in your 20s you have to get a better understanding, you have to try a lot of things, and then you can progress to your 30s where hopefully you find the thing that you love and you're passionate about. And even me, and I found what I'm passionate about. Sometimes I'm still growing, I'm still evolving, I'm still young, I'm 27. So maybe when I'm 33, 35, 40, 50, I'm doing something different. But everything you learn and everything you level up doing, even if your business doesn't work or your project doesn't work or your job doesn't work, it's ammo you're never going to lose. Ever. Like no one can, like you can be broke as fuck, but if you know how to make money, you will make money again. So that is, I believe in life lessons a lot like that. So the biggest thing that they feel, and I went through, is you feel lost, you feel like you might not be taking the right decisions, but you have to stick to your gut, you have to take a decision, you have to double down on it. And if it doesn't work, fuck it, move on to the next thing.
So like you said, you actually started something which you admit did not work, Torri Lahmar.
Totally failed. It was a real pity because I really loved it. Like I was 19, I used to love painting, and then I moved into digital and I started graphic design. I was like, okay, I can create 100 designs rather than just one and sell one. Because in another life, I would be an artist, but I think it's a very, it's a very delicate market. It's like, the price is in the eye of the beholder, so you're risking it. There's no perceived value to an art piece. So then I went into digital, I started graphic design, I started falling in love with 2D design and branding and illustration, and I launched a business which was Tori, which was based around Maltese art. And I loved it. Like I in another world, I wish I continued that, but then you start to understand the costs that come with a business and your time and how much it costs to make the product and how much it costs, how much you need to sell it for and what people are willing to pay for it. And then you deduct VAT and you start learning what VAT is and taxes, and you end up with €5 per art piece. So it was very hard to scale. It was hard to put food on my plate to do so. And, you know, we're not like, you know, there are some people who are lucky and their parents are a bit more comfortable and they can take care of them and put food on their plate, but we weren't, so we had to, you know, then I was like, fuck, you know, like it hurts, emotionally it hurt. And that's when I learned that you can't be emotionally attached to a business or an idea ever, because if you are, you're finished. If it doesn't work, if it finishes, you finish. And I said, okay, maybe, you know, there's something else. Then COVID came, and even worse, you know, we weren't selling anything in there because no one was spending money on artwork at home. They wanted to spend on food, water, you know, toiletries, and the essentials, because everyone was getting fired, everyone was getting laid off their jobs. So we were in quite a shithole. And then that's when fitness became even more important. You know, as you know, I always went to the gym. The gyms closed down. And we're like, shit, like there's nowhere to train, you know. And me and Adam were getting close at that time. And maybe we'll get into that a bit later. And we started to train outdoors. And we'd go to parks, and the police would come and kick us out for doing pull-ups on the kids' parks. And we're like, fuck, like this is a problem. Well, we're the most obese country in Europe. No one's valuing fitness. There's no place to train outdoors. Like, this is a total shit show. Like, this is a big problem. This is a huge problem. And I felt it because it was a problem for me. And it was a problem for me. It was a problem for others who were all complaining about the gyms being closed. And the government at the time did not back the gyms. So, you know, everyone was in a bit of a a funny scenario and we were like, listen, like what if we do something? What if we put our efforts, our ideas, our time and energy into something that, you know, we're passionate about? And then that's how the whole idea came of Bulletproof. And 4 or 5 years later, now we're making gyms free for 18-year-olds. So it's quite crazy.
So Scott, you literally did a 360 flip. You went from art and design into fitness, which back then was a little bit of a niche. So it was a bit of an untapped industry, especially having started in COVID. How did it feel doing this 360 flip and knowing that you are embarking on this new journey and it could potentially fail just like Torri Lahmar did?
To be honest, I was never scared about it failing. I was always excited, and it's like I wanted to wake up and work on it. You know, you're hungry, you want to do it. But I think I was more certain it was going to be a successful project because there was actual impact to what we were doing. Like through the other project, which was art. Okay, I could have gone into more of impactful art and artistry with regards to telling a narrative. But I think fitness was health was such an important thing on the agenda of the country, of COVID and of everything that was going on, that I was so fueled to do it that, you know, we were good. We were working 16, 17, 18 hours a day, you know, trying to get the message out, trying to build this community, trying to do something that doesn't, if it affects one person, it will affect 100. And I think that was such a driving force for us that we just doubled down. It wasn't even thinking about, because my past project failed, it was, fuck it, it failed. Okay, let's move. Like, this is important. This is something we can work on now. And it's speed, you know, let's move. Let's do it. So we didn't really think twice.
So talk to us about Bulletproof. Tell us in particular what worked, what didn't, and what mistakes did you make in the founding years of it when you had just started out?
I made a ton of mistakes. Because you're launching a business, you're launching a brand, but you're launching something that's like a passion project at the same time. So we didn't launch with a product. We weren't like a fitness app. We weren't a clothing brand like Gymshark. We didn't have a product that defines us, that made us the money. So it was an ethos. We knew that we wanted to inspire, motivate, and educate, but the means of hows and whens was totally in our control, which was good because it allowed us to be creatively free and experiment with different narratives and different means of content and media. But then it hurt us because, you know, we needed to make money as well. We didn't have money to pay a team, you know, we didn't have money to pay creatives. So we made a lot of mistakes. And I think, like, you can hear about what you shouldn't do. It's like touching a hot pan. If your mom tells you, it's hot, don't touch it. Okay, mom, she leaves, and you go to touch it because you want to feel it for yourself. And I think you really learn, and, you know, even you, how many times I tell you a lot of things and you're like, yes, and you end up doing them anyways, but it's how you learn. So I think when you do it, you're going to learn a lot. But I think, like, through the mistakes, we continue to grow, and, you know, it's important that you don't make that mistake again, but we stuck true to what the brand, like our why, you know, the Bulletproof why, which is to be resilient, to communicate the message to others, to be resilient, to push through any boundaries, to be stronger than you were yesterday. As cliche as that sounds, that's really important, especially with the whole COVID scenario and how soft society has become, you know, in the last couple of years. I think that message is more important than ever, to be strong, you know, to push through, to be bulletproof.
And was there ever a point in your founding years when you made these mistakes that you considered quitting or selling the brand or flipping to something else again?
I don't think so. I think because, like, the brand was us and we were the brand. It's like an artist, like a clothing designer. If you look at Nude Project, George Heaton, Represent, as they grow, the brand grows with them. So it's like when you evolve and you have a new message and you want to do something new, or you have a new belief, you input that into your brand. And that's when your brand connects so much more than just a business, because the brand is you. People connect to people. So I don't think there was a time when I thought about quitting or I thought about changing. I think we did so many mistakes, and we were trying to find our line a bit more because we were doing something that no one did, so we had nothing to refer to. Where you're like, you know, you get a bit frustrated, like, fuck, man, we spent a year doing this, or a year and a half doing this, and this message isn't working, and this happened, and it's part of it, you know. It's growth pains. It's, you know, it's growth pains. You can't like give it up for that reason. So growth pains.
How big did you envision Bulletproof getting when you first started out? What were your biggest plans for it back then?
The plans back then are still the plans now. It's like we wanted to be the biggest fitness community. We wanted to build such a community of like-minded people who really want to push forward, strive forward, where the brand is how it makes you feel. It's not a product, it's not a service. Those are byproducts of the feeling of the brand. But I still think it's the same. And I always pictured it to be one of the best in the world, one of the biggest in the world. And one day we will definitely get there. I think now we're starting to break through the national sphere, and we had the whole Baywatch campaign and working with some of our idols. That was fucking surreal. And that was a slap in the face, like, okay, we are good enough to work to the level of these guys. Like, you know, they loved working with us. They saw the value in what we did, and what we did was something back then in the industry no one had done. No Gymsharks, no one. So it was quite an eye-opener for us, like, okay, like now we're starting to get the grasp of where we want to go. I think now locally we're strong enough to have a say. And I remember once Papa told me this, or Dad told us this. Once I remember there was something on TV and someone had said something really good, and I was like, that's such a good idea. Like, they should do it. And he had said, but that will never happen. And I told him, why? And he's like, because everyone has an opinion, but not everyone has a say, Scott. And I'll never forget that. And that really stuck with me. And I was like, okay, man, this guy, I say thinking like, okay, everyone has an opinion. Everyone can say something. But does it really mean something? Like, if someone says something, is it going to happen? I was like, yeah, it's very interesting. You know, it got my brain thinking a bit. And I think now we're at the point where we do have a say. Like, locally, we do have a strong say. And it's good, and there's more responsibility when it comes to it, and that we take the right decisions to push projects forward. But I think the aspect of making gyms free with the Prime Minister is a super project and a bit of an eye-opener as to what we can do here and what we can do abroad as well. So the ethos of now compared to 4 or 5 years ago is still the same. It's just push fitness, push the mindset, push people forward, you know, create that network, man, that everyone can feed off, you know, that hungry network of people, which is still the same.
So I think a really pivotal point in your career, what I find really interesting, is when you launched Project 360, because essentially your image changed from this really motivational voice in the local fitness community to essentially this pretentious asshole. So can you break down what Project 360 is, your initial intentions behind it, and potentially the backlash that ensued after it, and why?
If mommy hears you talking to me like this, no problemi. Project 360 was basically came from, again, another personal scenario. It's like the brand becomes you through what you go through. You know, after New Year's Eve, the classic, everyone's hangover. And that night I hadn't drank, but in Christmas period I had drank a lot. I was like, fuck, I felt like shit. I'm like, the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I still drinking, you know? And I had always wanted to cut alcohol out and sort of, you know, bad habits be bad habits and let them go. And I was like, how am I going to create an excuse for myself, you know, to actually do it rather than saying, okay, now I'll do it, and just keep procrastinating. I was like, okay, what if I had to do a year, you know, not drinking like 1 sip of alcohol? What if I had to actually try it out? And I looked into Chris Williamson and a couple other guys, and they tried it out. And Chris has a really interesting story. Chris, apart from being in Love Island, was a club promoter. So his job was, you know, managing parties, and he used to make fucking good money. And he started to realize his ways, like, you know, am I going to stay in this realm all my life? I had always wanted to do the podcast, and him stopping alcohol was his excuse to get into it. So I said, okay, to work for Chris, I'm sure it will work for me. And I was like, okay, fuck it, let me stop alcohol. And I said, okay, like now, what am I going to do? What am I going to fill my time up with or something, have a bit of a tangible goal that is going to make sure I stay on track? I started thinking, should I maybe do bodybuilding? I've always loved bodybuilding. I've always loved the gym culture, the gym bro culture. And I always wanted to get jacked, and I never managed to get jacked because I wouldn't prioritize my eating enough or my training or something. But I was like, bodybuilding. Like, I'm gonna do a show at the end of the year. I'm gonna be like in triangulars and, you know, go on a stage. So I said, okay. And we were at Bertus, and I used to be very close to Andre at the time, training. He was my gym bro. And we were upstairs, and he's like, you know what we should do? Next year we should do boxing. I was like, oh, yeah, it's actually like a very, very good idea. I'm like, why not just do it now? And I was like, fuck. And then we started thinking about it, and we said, like, let's run it. And the whole story changed because my idea was to train like a pro boxer for a year. That was the script. That was the line of the video. We're at the shoot, and we're shooting it, and Adam's looking at me. He's like, it's not boring. It's like, you're going to train like a pro boxer. Like, it's like, you're going to become a pro boxer. I was like, man, it's a big statement, you know? I was like, I prefer saying training like a pro boxer. It's like, we're discussing it. It's like, it's going to be a bit boring. I don't think it's going to get enough mass appeal. And then the line changed. And it became, I'm going to become a pro boxer. That's when everything erupted, like, you know, and the whole boxing community jumped on me, like, who does this guy think he is? You know, I've spent years doing it, or blah, 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 or it's a disrespect to boxing. Everyone just got defensive for nothing. And then Steve came up with a question, and he gave a bit of advice, like, listen, if you think you're going to become pro, like, you know, you're in for a surprise, buddy, blah, blah. I said, okay, this guy's like one of the best boxers. I would have expected him to like message me personally, listen, bro, it's a good idea, let me help you, let me train you. I decided to go public about it, so I said, like, let's pinch him a bit, you know, let's respond. And it blew up, totally blew up.
Can you tell us how long it usually takes someone to become a pro boxer?
It takes years. And
how many?
I don't know. Depends on the person, eh? It took me 300 days.
So before we get to you, for people who aren't really in the scene...
Boxing's a bit of a funny game because, like, you decide when you go pro, you decide when you're ready to fight a professional fight. And for people who don't know, the difference between amateur and professional is the amount of rounds you have and the quality of a fighter you're fighting. So if you want to... And, like, when you go into pro boxing, you start building your record. Like, boxers, like Canelo, Mayweather, they build their record. You are known as the best by your record. So how many wins you have and how many losses you have. And most boxers are so obsessed with their record of, listen, I have 20 wins and I have 0 losses. Like, okay, bro, but who did you fight? Who are your guys? They're farmers, they're real boxers. Who are they? And unfortunately, the Maltese mentality was so focused on this record of, oh man, I fought 30 times and I won 25, but they were fighting no ones. Like, Maltese weren't even fighting Maltese. So there was no Maltese champions, nothing. 0 Maltese champions in Malta, in a boxing community where they're fighting English guys or Irish guys who are pub owners, you know, or securities or bus drivers. This is legit. And I called it out. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, how can you guys pop your chest out that you're professionals and then you're looking stupid? Like, who the fuck are you fighting, you know? Like, fight someone good. Like, you know, you guys are actually good. Like, fight someone good. And they got offended by that. They took it personally. And rightly so. I mean, it's quite embarrassing. I'd be very embarrassed to do that. So it could take a week, 2 weeks if you want. You want to fight pro? Fight pro. But then you're going to fight someone who's relatively good. And you don't want to look like an idiot in the ring. So it's a personal preference of how long it takes.
Yes, usually locally, it took a lot of them, let's say around 8 to 10-ish years, most of them.
Yes.
So what did you want to prove by stating that you would do it in a year? You literally put their career on the line, you put them on the spot. What did you want to prove by this?
I don't think I put anyone on the spot. I think whoever took it personal needs to check themselves. I did it for me. I did it to prove something to myself, that if I am accountable and I really fucking, you know, put my cards on the table and I bust my balls to do it, I can do it. Like, irrelevant of what anyone says. I don't give a shit about what anyone says. And when they would talk that I can't do it or they talk badly about it, it was fuel for me. I love it. I feed off this. That's what they didn't know. They didn't know that this is going to fuel me more. So I don't care. I think, you know, 99% of people's opinions are relevant to me. So, and change nothing about me. And when one day I'm 7 feet under the ground, no one's going to give a fuck about me or them or about anything that anyone did. So I couldn't care less, to be honest. I did it for me. I did it to prove that, you know, for me, in my mind, that was one of the hardest things I could do in a year. Like, it's fucking bonkers. Who the fuck's going to go out, do a video and say, I'm going to become a pro boxer? Like, is that? So I was like, okay, it's so uncomfortable that I'm going to do it. Let's run it, post it. Like, when it's out, it's out. Word is out, and then it's out there. You're accountable, because if you don't do it, you're going to look like it's your failure, then it's a public humiliation. So that pressure was what I needed to do it.
So you obviously ended up riling a lot of these people up on social media, and there was, as you know, quite a lot of backlash. So not only did Steve come at you, a lot of other boxers came at you defending Steve, and they started to hate on you essentially. Would you say that any of this did eventually end up affecting you negatively? And if there was any hateful comments, how did you deal with them, if you did?
Personally, I don't think it affected me at all. Just because I knew what these people were. Like I knew how insecure they were. I knew that you have to picture them. They're on like Friday evening at 9 p.m. Blah, blah, commenting about me. Like, bro, go live a life, go do your thing, you know? But it was good. We rallied them up. It created awareness. We launched a new business from it. So obviously, we rode on the wave. And Fight Island was super, super success. I think it worried me more personally, more like for my father, for my mother, like, you know, Kirsten, our brother, that people start, you know, these crazy people start affecting my family. That worried me more than anything. It gets a bit annoying, like when you're out sometimes, it's like they just keep bugging your ass. But you learn how to switch it off. And you remember the bigger picture of the storyline, why it is in the first place. So I think that was our Trojan horse to getting the word out, making it more of a talk, you know, making boxing more interesting and entertaining in Malta, which it was the biggest sporting event apart from a football game against England or Italy ever. So that was a big success. But no, I think it just fueled me.
So essentially that is when Flakey, the character, was born. And what I think is absolutely hilarious is that till this day, people still don't know that this is a character. And eventually, this character started becoming heavily associated with you, with Scott. Would you say that you are similar to Flakey in certain ways? And what particular traits did you want to hit on when thinking of how you're going to develop this character into what it's become today?
I think Flakey is interesting and funny because he's like an alter ego. He's like an excuse to be extra, like even when you can't be extra because society tells you can't, or because, you know, people are going to look at you bad. It's my meme character, so I can just do the fuck I want. And I think boxing was the perfect way of allowing that character to grow. It came very naturally. There was no plan in developing this character, and the name, Steve gave me the name. He called me a snowflake, so I said, okay, let's ride on it and let's do it. And it just became a thing, like, you know, Maltese started to enjoy this character and started to rally up seeing this character, and that really showed the power of socials and how, like, if you get a message across well, like, you're imprinted in thousands of people's brains. It's like even today I just came from the game, crazy. Like Flakey everywhere. It's like, you know, these guys, you don't even know who these people are, and they speak to you like they know you and that they connect, either in a good or a bad way, they still connect, and they're emotionally invested in your story, which is crazy to think about it, when it's just like a piss take for us. But it was fun. We understood the market, we understood the target audience, we understood the boxing game, and just aligned everything to get the best results to the campaign, to the event, to my journey, and it worked.
And what was your inspiration for Flakey, the character, if any?
I don't think there was, man. I think it's just me, like, turned up Mala. Like, the volume's really high.
Scott times 10, like.
Scott times 10, like, times 100.
Times 15, times 20.
15. I don't think there was in sport. It's just understanding, and it's all, like, psychological. It's all a game. Like, marketing's all a game. You have to understand how you're making people feel and why they're going to give a fuck about what you're saying, why they're not going to give a fuck about something else. You know, how are you going to stand out in hundreds or thousands of videos that people watch every day? Because everyone's TikTok brain, even, you know, your age and younger than your age. Like, sometimes I'll be in the public and 10-year-olds or 9-year-olds come to me, oh, el boxer. I'm like, man, at 9, I didn't even know what a mobile was, you know. I had a mobile at 12, 13, and not even WhatsApp I had back then, let alone TikTok. So it's crazy. It's crazy, like the power of socials and how people connect. It's like, it's so funny, it's so ironic, because as social media grows and, like, we're becoming more social, we're becoming super less physically social, and everyone's a lot more lonely, solitude's a lot higher, even, like, for example, relationships and kids, like, having kids is on the decline. So it's a crazy period right now where I even think even Maltese and Malta is going to start realizing that the amount of Maltese people that are being born is decreasing heavily. That's going to be a huge problem. Like now, I was seeing a stat even when we're doing the Free Gyms campaign to see how many 18, 19, and 20-year-olds there are. They're like 5,000, 4,700, 4,200. Then I kept on going the ages, 3,900, 3,300. Super, super alarming. So it's very funny, the whole social media like analysis of what's really social and what is actually social is crazy. It's where people are spending their time now.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting too is Flakey's evolution as a character.
Flakey's growing like I am growing, Flakey's growing. If I'm going to continue boxing, I'm not sure. We've been discussing some crazy stuff and a personal dream that I've always wanted to do from when I was young. But before I get to that, even Sofrito, he's a brilliant example where you have 500,000 people in Malta. Everyone or 390,000 people are on TikTok. 390,000 people are on TikTok. And how many TikTok creators are there in Malta? Who's posting regularly? Who keeps coming up on the For You page? After Flakey, Sofrito. Every day. He's posting 4 or 5 TikToks every single day. A lot of people are like, oh, lol, this guy, he's just taking the piss. Smart. He's capitalizing on people's time, people's attention. He's another Maltese guy who's relating to Maltese guys. He's fun, he's being himself. And man, good, man. He has crowds of hundreds of people at 7 a.m. At 7 a.m. going to buy toast in Dingley. People don't even wake up for work at 7 a.m., let alone go to buy toast. So that goes to show that Malta's finally understanding the creator economy. Like the economy is going to be ruled completely by creators like KSI, Logan Paul, Jake Paul. These guys are building Mr. Beast, multi-billion-dollar businesses through their personal brands. Like Jake Paul, another example, before he had the Mike Tyson fight, he launched W, his deodorant brand, and he saw a really interesting gap in the market where there is no, we call them the dinosaur brands. It's like you have your Cadbury's, you have your Coca-Colas, you have your Old Spices, brutes who have been there for years and years and years, have huge market share, but nobody connects to anyone behind the brand. You just buy it because your brother bought it or your father bought it. It becomes like CLV brands where your family buys, I don't know, Fairy Liquid, so you buy Fairy Liquid, but you don't connect to the brand. There's no reason why you're buying that brand over another. They're all the same. They're all owned by the same companies, BlackRock and all these guys, so it's irrelevant. But Jake saw a nice niche where, okay, I have an audience of young men, boys, who look at my content, engage with my content. What if I had to launch a product, my personal product that could compete and that could be a product that they buy? And it's worth almost, I think, 500 million already, which is insane. So, like Jake Paul is doing, Sofrito's doing as well. Different product, different market, same recipe. Flakey, Fight Island, same recipe. Other products, same recipe. So I think now the big brands, the big market leaders are going to get such a hit in the next 2 to 3 years because creator economy is here, and it's not going anywhere. Because you connect to people. It's like even watching YouTube or watching Instagram, TikTok. Even when I was young, I used to watch people like Christian Guzman, Mike Tyson. I would spend more time watching them than time speaking to my friends or speaking to my parents. So I would connect and look up to these guys more than your family, which is insane. Even then, when I met Mike, it was like the first time I felt, I don't know the word, it's like you feel like starstruck, like shit, this is Mike Tyson, this is the guy, the guy that got me into the gym, which is crazy. So I think that's going to keep growing. Malta's finally understanding the power of it, through the Flakeys and the Sofritos. But the character is evolving, and I think now is the time where I was contemplating, should I continue boxing? I did what I had to do. I don't want to build a career I'm not, I am a boxer, but I'm not a boxer at the same time. Because if I tell them I'm not a boxer, they'll jump on me, you're not a boxer.
So this delusional mindset, I feel like is really interesting because you speak about it quite often. And I feel like it's reflected in a lot of your big projects. So you literally made gyms free for 18 to 20-year-olds. And you work directly hand in hand with the Prime Minister. You also created the biggest fighting event on the island. You worked with big names in the industry. And I'll mention just a couple. You worked with Dejan Stipket, Tavi Castro, Stan Brownie, Natalia Messiah, Vladislava, Yasmina. So all of these big people, and now you are actually launching your next Project 360. What is this delusional mindset? And would you say that it is what got you where you are today?
100%. It was never skill, it was I didn't have anything special to anyone else ever, you know. In school, in training, I was always a small kid. In school, even football, I was the smallest kid on the pitch. That's still good. I always had this fire, you know. I always wanted to do more and prove more and just be hungry for it. You know, like a lion, I was always hungry. And that was always the mentality. Even to post a video like that, you could look like, you know, you could look really stupid by posting a video that you're going to become a pro boxer. It was the case until I proved everyone wrong, and then everyone shut up. So I think being delusional is so fucking important, like for yourself and for anything. Because as cliche as it is, if you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. So you have to think big. Like, why not? What's going to wake you up every morning? What's your drive, you know? To go to the same job that you don't like doing, and you keep contemplating it until you're fucking 40, 45, 50, and it's too late to do something, or 60 or 70, and you're on your deathbed, and you're like, what the fuck did I do with my life? So I think dreaming is beautiful, man. It's everything. It's life. That is life. Dreaming is life. Life is dreaming. Malta needs more people like us. Malta needs more of that I don't give a fuck mentality. Like, I will dream and I will go for it, you know. I will do what I want to do. Like, it's my life and I will live the life that I want to live. I think we need a bit more of that. And I think this will come true.
And it must have been super insane working with some of the people you looked up to when you were younger. Can you tell us perhaps some valuable lessons that you learned from these huge names, and what maybe progressed or pushed you even further to continue working on these delusional projects?
I mean, the first time it was crazy when we started to collaborate with big names. It was crazy. It was like, you know, we're seeing these guys on socials everywhere, and now they're like, we're collaborating with them. We learned a lot from a personal brand perspective and how to represent your brand and the type of content, to create. We learned a lot from creators as well. So we started really getting more into content, more into the creative thing, and I used to hate being on camera. Hate it. It was like, even when we started Bulletproof, I was the last guy to ever be on camera. I'd be like, listen, if you can do without me, do it without me. I'll work on the back end. I'll develop the brand, but I don't want to be on camera. And I started to, you start putting in the reps, you start getting used to it, you know. Even the mentality of, she's on camera, he's on socials, like, people are too worried about what people think about them. I think that's a huge problem. But then when we started to gain some ground and we started to really inflict change through content, and that was through the Project Robin Hood first. It's like when we actually created a video that Malta has in a super bad position. There's no space to train in outdoors. We have beautiful climate, beautiful country, and we're not capitalizing on what we already have, you know, and how we can try and rewrite the script of our obesity narrative. That was when, okay, people are connecting. Here, there's a problem. There's a real problem, which is what made us start the brand. And then, you know, 1-2 years later of compounding work and keep doing and keep preaching the message, we launched our first outdoor gym, which we had to raise money for. And that was a huge eye-opener. And we got there. It was the first time we worked with a global athlete. And we're like, okay, man, like, you look back at it, okay, we opened an outdoor gym. Fuck, nice, very good. Let's do it again and again and again. Okay, like, we want to create a campaign, you know, to make Malta a fitness haven. Like, Malta's great for fitness, man. It's like they go to Bali, they go to Dubai. Malta has better climate than Bali and Dubai, has more sea, is more surrounded by sea. The landscape is better as well. We're not in a fucking desert. So, like, shit, Malta could be this next, you know, global destination. And we worked with Visit Malta, and we brought down some of our our idols, Maddas Fitness, Mike Terracin, Stan Brownie. It was crazy to see, like, the Baywatch, the fitness Baywatch, you know, guys in Malta on the beach. It was surreal. And we learned a lot from them. And we also learned that we're not that far away from them. And that was, I think, the best boost for us. Like, it's like when they say never meet your heroes. And like, when we met them, I don't agree with that statement, but when we met them, we were like, okay, these guys are normal guys like us, like literally like us. There's nothing different about them. And even in how the way that they work, some of them, we had more drive to work than them. All right, maybe because they were established and they were successful and they were, you know, they had kids, so they were a bit more relaxed. But we saw that, okay, we can play on the level of these guys. And they loved working with us, and they saw the value in what we did. And you have people like Stan Brownie, who from a content perspective is a genius. The guy has 50 million subs, gets millions of views every day. And you start to learn from the best chefs in the kitchen. It's like if you're cooking a carbonara, you want to learn from Gordon Ramsay, you know, a top Italian chef. So then we started to see what these guys are doing, and you know, take it in like a sponge. And then that set us up to keep building, keep growing.
So you kept growing and you launched Project 360 essentially with many people believing that you won't do it. So they were sure and they were trying to prove you wrong, stating that you won't manage. What was it like entering the ring for the first time, your first amateur fight, knowing that all odds are against you and you're in a situation where you are the literal definition of the underdog?
Crazy, like when you go into that ring, it's like you never feel a fight or flight scenario like that. It's like you literally feel like you're going to war. Like you're either going to hit a guy or he's going to hit you. And he's going to try. And like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. Exactly like that. Like my first fight was a disaster. I fought like shit. Like I didn't even know what I was doing. I had 5 months of training. At least I won. And at least that gave me the momentum to go till the end game. But it was more of like, and I still remember that moment, I was too focused on Kirsten because Kirsten told me that I'm going to be an uncle, he's having a kid, exactly before I went out.
So before we continue, Kirsten is our eldest brother.
I'm like, bro, what the fuck? Like that moment, I didn't even know what the fuck I was doing. Then before you know it, Scott, Flakey, like everyone's going crazy, everyone's alla shitting on me, everyone's booing, and all I'm seeing is Kirsten. I'm like, yeah, like now you're telling me this shit, like now? So that's literally all I remember. I don't even remember fighting. And I never watched back the clips. But it was a crazy feeling. Oh, you see, your own event, your own mission. People are backing it, whether they're for you or they're against you. They're backing it. You know, you have a sold-out venue, 3,000 people. You know, a huge sporting event in Malta. Everyone's interested in boxing. It was a nice feeling. It was good. It was like, okay, you know, like you're doing good when people are chatting shit. That's when you're doing good. That's when you're doing good.
And for your first fight, how confident in winning were you?
Mentally, I was always going to win. I didn't really think about my technique. Like me, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to win. There's no plan B. I'm going to win. Whatever it is, I'm going to win. So I was so focused on that. Like it's just wiring my brain. Because it's your brain's a CPU. You know, it's what you keep reporting. If you have a negative mindset and I don't think I'm going to do it, I don't think I'm going to manage, you're already lost. Don't play, don't fight. If you're going to win, you know you're going to win. And you have one up on the other guy. You know, it's a mind game. So I won before I started the challenge. I already became a pro before I saw that video. You know?
What I think was really interesting was obviously your first win fueled your second fight, which was your first professional fight, which was the challenge, Project 360 in a whole. But what many people don't know is the state that you were in. So you were in quite a bad physical state during or right when you had to fight. Can you tell us what was wrong and what was going through your head?
I was a mess.
Why?
I got so sick. Like it's the last thing you want before you fight is to be sick. I remember being at the weigh-in and I was so focused. I did a mistake because I was focusing on the event, on the marketing, on the brand, on my training. That my training not almost took a backseat, but I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night in the last 2 weeks of the fight, which is really bad, really bad with the training. And then it caught up to me, and when I stopped, so before you fight, the last week, so you have 12 weeks, you have a camp, every day is super intense, and the last week, you stop training. So that's when you let your body relax, you make sure you don't get injured, you recover, your muscles are ready, your brain is ready, you're sharp, you just do a bit of movement training and just keep the blood flowing in the gym just to keep your brain sharp. But that's when your body recovers. And that's when I took my foot off the gas. And that's when all the tiredness, all the fatigue, all of the weeks of training, of building up the event, of prepping for everything, of working on next year with the brand, fucking, you know, came in. I was like, shit. I started sleeping like 11, 12 hours a night. I'm like, something is wrong for sure. And then I was at the weigh-in and I was sick. I was like, shit. I'm like, this is the last thing I needed, where I'm going to call off the fight. Everyone's going to call me a joke, you know, and call me out. And that was the last thing I needed after all of that talk for marketing and to build hype on the fight. And that was working. That was the last thing I needed, was to call off the fight. But somehow I managed. I spoke to my friend, Max, you know, Max Kalia, and he helped me out a lot, both mentally, psychologically, and even physically. Went for dinner, calmed me down a bit. I slept. And I was like, man, like, I either need to fight now or I'm going to have to do it again. And I'm not doing this again. Like, everything's set. Just rewire the brain. I'm fine. You know, he's more stressed than I am, and he was. Because he had the pressure, everyone wanted him to win. And that I used in my favor. Most people would get, would feel pressure that, the pressure's on them. But I transferred it to him. So even at the weigh-in, I spoke to him. I told him some shit. Like, man, everyone's looking at you to win. You have the pressure, not me. You've been training 5 years, not me. You're the bigger guy. If you lose, you're going to look like shit. And it got him. And I played on that, mind games. And I just pushed through it, man. Fuck it, 12 minutes. And just get through it. I was dying. My heart was a disaster. After I was sick and not sick, on and off for a month. Like the doctors told me you shouldn't fight, you're not fit to fight, don't fight because you might have, longevity issues with your heart or with your lungs. But I couldn't. Like it was too far, I was too far in to not do it. But like everything else, you push through. And now it's what I like to call, and David Goggins has a really good saying, is the cookie jar. His saying is basically you have this cookie jar, and every time you do something hard, you get a new cookie. So every time you're in a scenario where you don't know if you can do it, you're in a really uncomfortable position, you're doing something crazy, you remember of all the other cookies you have stored, you're like, this is just another cookie in my cookie jar. So like, listen, I've done this, like, we made free gyms, I've trained all of this, we're going to make gyms free for this, we've done that, I've gone through this. This is just another 3 minutes. So just get through it, If you do running marathon, if you run whatever, you want to become a pro footballer, if you want to, whatever it is. It's another thing for the cookie jar. And then after the fight, I was like, I think I won, I hope I won. I'm like, if I won, honestly at that moment, I was like, if I won or I didn't. I proved everyone wrong and it's done. And then cherry on the cake and I won.
So you secured your win, cherry on the cake. People were still booing you though. Yep. Even after you did prove that, listen, I did shit talk, but you know what? I fucking made it. How did that feel? A lot of the crowd was booing you. You were showing your ass. He had Flakey. He had fuck Flakey on his shorts.
Because it became like
It became a meme.
It became, everyone started saying fuck Flakey, fuck Flakey.
So I was literally in the crowd and I was hearing people behind me. Thank God that I don't get riled up. Everyone behind us on purpose were saying fuck Flakey because they knew that we were on your team. And you won. And you were showing your ass to the crowd, which actually said fuck Flakey on your ass. Obviously, people kept booing you. So you did prove them wrong. You actually had people come up to you after the fight saying, listen, you earned my respect and I can't really tell you otherwise because you proved everyone wrong. You still had people shitting on you. How did that feel? Them hating on you after you managed to do all of that?
It felt so good because for them to be so emotionally invested, imagine they're so emotionally invested in seeing me lose. They're paying good money to see me fight. They're in the front. I'm winning. So what they paid for, they didn't manage to get in return. They expected a loss. They paid to see me get beat up. And they didn't get it. It's fucking amazing. It's brilliant. It's like, man, you can't have better business than that. It was amazing. It was like a year ago, they were in the same position. And that was the whole point. Like, you are in the same position you were in last year. And I have grown so much. Forget the pro and forget the boxing. And I have grown so much from it, man. Learning how to grow such thick skin, learning how to push through all of the hate and all of the negativity, learning how to, zone into myself and focus on my thoughts and just do what I have to do. Just do the thing. Just do it. That I learned so much from that. And now I can feel like I can do absolutely anything.
So I feel like a lot of us sometimes when we are taking on a massive challenge, like maybe you did with Project 360, we're a little bit afraid to think of what if it doesn't work. What were your thoughts on that? And what if you actually didn't win and all that shit talking, all that preparation would have been for nothing? How did you think of it?
You know what I'd say? Imagine thinking, what if I tried it and I did it? Like, what if? What if I could have done it? What if I could have really done it? That is all I think about. I don't think about a lost opportunity. Like, if I fail, I'm going to grow like fuck from it regardless. So that's what I think about. The what if I actually did it? And to actually do it, you have to try and do it, hey. Otherwise, you're not going to do it.
And do you think that projects like Project 360 or huge challenges that people take on, do you think that this is something anyone could have done? Were you at an advantage in some way?
100%. Anyone and everyone. I had nothing above anyone. Physically, I'm not the biggest guy neither. I fought a guy who was 10 kilos heavier than me. I think it's all mental games, man. It's all up here. It's all in the mind. Like, everything starts with the mind. You have to be just sick for it, You have to want it so much. And you just have to do it, eh? Like, stop procrastinating. Everyone procrastinates, and I'll do that later, or I'll change that job now, or I'll do this now. Just fucking do it, man. Just do it, too. Do the thing.
And do you think, sorry, go for it.
Like, don't talk about the thing. Don't, plan the list of the thing you need to do. Don't bring it up or don't talk about it. Do it. That's it.
And Scott, something a little bit different here, but you might be verging into something different, which I think is interesting. There were hints on Bulletproof's socials and also Fight Island of potential pieces of clothing. So Andre walked out in a Delusional t-shirt, which looked very similar to Bulletproof's branding. You had Muscle Bay. You have Full Stack Clothing, which launched with the Prime Minister's Free Gym campaign. Is Bulletproof or is Scott, Flakey, whoever verging into clothing? Or is this just a little bit of a teaser of some limited editions you've done?
I've always loved clothing, and I never thought it was worth investing in because it's a whole new business, it's a whole new brand. There's obviously an investment, you need to buy the products, and you're not guaranteed selling the products. But something I've always wanted to do. Our father had, was in the background of clothing as well, with Hugo Boss, so on. I want to build a successful clothing brand. I want to build a viral clothing brand. But I think the brand will represent what we do. Like, we're not just a brand like anyone else. The ethos is to make fucking noise. Like, the brand, Bulletproof, makes noise, take the right moves. So I think I'm looking on the vibes of make noise, not clothes. And that's like the ethos of the brand. Like, whatever we do, the clothing is just a byproduct of that successful project or that movement or that feeling, or that cult. I really want to cultivate this cult. Always wanted to do it, so I probably would.
And with all this being said, how would you define success?
I think success is personal to anyone. Whatever you guarantee as success. If it's being happy, I think happy and healthy are the two most important things. And then I think the third is being financially free. I think those three are the keys to anything. Like, if you're happy and you're healthy and you're good, and at least you are financially free where you can do something if you need to do something. You can put food in your plate without worry. You can live under a house. You can travel. You can grow. For me, that is success. And then there's purpose, which is the fourth pillar for me. Purpose, like, I could do a lot of things and make money, a lot of different projects. But if there's no purpose for it, for me, there's no drive to wake up every single day. There's no story. I'm not attached to it. I need to do something that's bigger than me and bigger than what I can do on my own as well. So I think if you're happy, healthy, financially free, and live life by purpose, I think that is success.
And on the other hand now, how would you define failure?
By not achieving what you want to achieve. For me, there's no plan B. So, like, I'm going to do it. I will succeed in whatever I want to succeed in. Everyone wants different things. Maybe some people want to travel the world and be comfortable and live different cultures, which is in another life is great. I would love to do that. But failure is a strong word. But you need pressure. There has to be, that's the story. That's what's worth fighting for. Otherwise, if there's no failure, there's no success. It's boring. Life is boring. It's bland. So it's good, man. It's a game. Life is a game.
And lastly, Scott, what we're doing is, for our audience, we're asking all our guests for recommendations of something that might have inspired you along the way. So whether it was a book, a podcast, a particular person, something that you feel really taught you a valuable lesson to bring you where you are today, what would it be? What recommendation would you give?
There are many. I think from a mindset perspective, David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. That's super book. He's like the epitome of becoming bulletproof. The brand name came from David Goggins. David Goggins was a cockroach exterminator. He was like over 150 kilos. He was super depressed, eating ice cream. Classic story, in front of his television. And he saw the army on Discovery Channel, and that's when he decided to change it all. And then he became the first guy ever and the only guy ever to do 3 hell weeks in the army. And now he's like this ultra athlete, ultra human species, So that's a great one for mindset and self-development. And I think you have people like Alex Hormozy, $100 million leads, he's a great guy. If you want a guy to run on business and sales, Alex Hormozy is amazing. I learned a lot from him. I think Chris Williamson is very, very good as well. And the podcast of Chris and Alex, class. That is straight value.
And lastly, if there's any tip that we'd hear from Scott personally to close off, what would it be?
Dream, man. Like, honestly, dream. Like, and one day, hopefully, I would have done more, I will have more on my belt to talk it to a wider audience. But dream. Like, do what the fuck you want to do. It's your life, you know, in a couple of years or, you know, maybe a bit more than a couple of years. Everyone's going to be 7 feet under. The world will go on. Everything will live on. People forget about you. So you are tiny, you know, you're so small in the grand scheme of things. Just live your life the way you want to live it and dream. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Scott. We'll close off here.
Prosit.
It was a pleasure having you on board.